Welcome to Coffee Break with Rachel V. Hill, presented by Superbook Sports. Taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel V. Hill.
Not Rachel V. Hill. We're filling in for Rachel this week. She's out on vacation. I'm Jake Shapiro. He's D-Mac with his cat mug. D-Mac, how was the weekend?
Jake, it's great to see you, my friends. Always good to be seen. I was out at Broncos on Saturday. Saw Barbie yesterday, so I can tell you all about Barbie. If you not a kids movie,
I saw Barbie on Thursday, so we could do all the Barbie talk. It was great.
I loved it, but it's definitely not a kids movie. So just a heads up on that one.
Yes. I don't know. I've been singing since I saw it, D-Mac. Anywhere else, I'd be a 10. I just keep walking around my house saying, anywhere else, I'd be a 10. Anytime my wife makes me do a chore.
Yes, but I wish I was Ken. Like Ken's life. I mean, first of all, he's ripped. I mean, he's an unfreaking believable shape. And I don't think there's many worries going on. And you know what? At the end of the day, it was a little bit too much running stuff, so, it all sort of worked out.
It did. It was good. I had the AMC A-list thing where you could see all the movies you want basically for $22 a month or something. I've seen Oppenheimer. I've seen Barbie. I saw the new Jennifer Lawrence movie. I saw Mission Impossible. I've just been beating the heat by going to the movie theaters, D-Mac. That's been my game plan. It's worked. It's been a great movie month. I've been pleased by that. Had a great weekend. Went to First Friday on Santa Fe. Got to experience some of the art and culture of Denver. It was fantastic.
Nice.
So I'm riding high. But when I was at First Friday, huge news broke in college sports. And I have been so excited that me and you were going to talk about this first thing Monday morning because it's your Arizona State Sun Devils, my Colorado Buffaloes going to the Big 12. Just what are your initial reactions? Because I have not had, I've had time to kind of react and think about it because it's been a week and a half since Colorado moved. Arizona State, all of a sudden, just moving out to the Big 12. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are it's very positive. We're going to miss California, I guess. But what I think the Big 12, which is, help me, Jake, is it the Big 18 or the Big 20 right now? What do we got here?
It's right now at 14. Starting next year, it'll be 16 because Texas and Oklahoma are going to the SEC. So we're at the Big 16 right
16?
now.
16? Okay. All right. Because you've got to, and BYU's part of it too, correct? Okay.
Yeah, they joined this year. So
you've got a pretty natural 5-team division with BYU, Utah, Arizona State, and CU. Like that all sort of, boy, that fits in awful well, doesn't it? So you would think you would play those four, well, they would play each other every single year. So I think that's pretty good. I think you could develop some rivalries there with Arizona State, BYU, and Utah. I think that fits in pretty well. And then, you play probably CSU every year. You probably try to get that in. There's 5 games. And then your other 7 games will be a kind of a rotation against the other Big 12 teams. And I do wonder if they'll bring in any others. I'm not even sure what they'll do. But I'm fine with it. I think it's great. I like the Pac-12, Jake. I did. They had their problems, but I inherently liked CU. I think they had a lot more in common with the Pac-12 schools than they did with the Big 12 schools. So I understand why they did it. They didn't have much of a choice, obviously. So I thought it worked out pretty well overall for CU, and I'm pretty happy for Arizona State. I think there's others, because there's other sports that the Pac-12 does really, really well that nobody really cares about, that are more natural California fit. But I do wonder, for example, real quick, University of Northern Colorado, they're in 3 different conferences. They're in like the Big West, and they're in the Big 12 for wrestling, and they're also in the Summit League. So it's not like you can't sort of, mishmash it around depending on, what sport that you want to play. I assume for basketball and football, it'll all stay the Big 12, but that doesn't mean for cross country or something, or for soccer or whatever, you couldn't join other conferences.
Yeah, I'd be hard pressed to think that for, let's say, wrestling or gymnastics, that they would still stay in the Pac-12 because the Pac-12 is not going to be happy with any of these schools that did leave. But yeah, for Arizona State, it's going to have, or, in Oregon, leaving 4 different schools is not only going to have or different conferences, going to have a huge impact on students in terms of traveling that's not in the football arena. And it also is going to very much impact the competition of your sports because, Colorado doesn't have this issue. There's only 15 schools on campus. 9 of them are women, 6 of them are men's. Yeah, it's going to affect your cross-country team. But the last time CU was in the Big 12, they won cross-country every single year they were in it. So whatever. But, Arizona State, how many schools in the Big 12 have gymnastics? I'm not sure what the number is, but I know it's probably less than the Pac-12. What I find interesting about the Arizona situation as well is Arizona State both the Big 12. So many of these conference realignment moves, Oregon, Washington, have separated their schools from their state schools. They separated those historic rivalries. So it's kind of cool to see Arizona and Arizona State. And granted, there's not really a little brother in that situation where there clearly is with Washington and Oregon, but it's cool to see those two join together because I think those two are such prestigious schools and do both add a lot of value.
Yeah, so I think it works out well basically for everybody. And I don't know what Cal and Stanford do, Oregon State and Washington State. I suppose they just join the Mountain West and it becomes the Pac West or something like that. I don't even know what choice they have at this point. I think that's the best they can do. Like I said, there's other conferences you could join, like for baseball, for example, for Stanford and Cal, who both have really good baseball teams. You could join the West Coast Conference or the Big West. Those are very high level conferences, and you can always schedule non-conference games against USC, UCLA. So, I'm sure that won't be a big deal. It's all about football and basketball. The only weird outlier, Jake, and I'll throw this at you. Do you think it's a possibility that Cal and Stanford would just get rid of football?
Wow. Cal, I would say maybe because of the debt that their athletic department is in. You also have to remember that California government and the people who oversee the university said the revenue that USC and UCLA make from the Big Ten will be split across all of the California schools. So Cal is going to get some money back. I think that there's also potential that Stanford joins the Big Ten if they can get Notre Dame. If Notre Dame and Stanford go together, that's the golden goose in all of this is Notre Dame. There's some sports-specific ads across this conference realignment that are interesting, including the Big 12. Now they're talking about adding Gonzaga and UConn as basketball-only schools, which would strengthen that conference. I got news for you. The Big 12 is the best basketball conference in the country now. Like that basketball league is going to be phenomenal.
Stanford, you want to talk about a tough haul in football. Stanford joining the Big Ten would be ugly unless they do some serious changing of their rules in terms of eligibility. They'd be fine in all the other sports. They no problem. But Stanford in the Big Ten, I mean, dude, they're barely keeping their head above water in the Pac-12 right now. I mean, the Big Ten would be okay. I mean, whatever. Listen, who cares? It's more about CU anyways than anything else. They got some good neighbors to play with Arizona, Arizona State, BYU, and Utah. That's cool. I think it's good for everybody. Those schools are a hell of a lot easier to get to than a lot of other Big 12 schools. And, in all honesty, you'd rather go to Tempe and Scottsdale than Lubbock. It's a more fun weekend. Trust me.
I was very down on the move initially from CU to go to the Big 12 for the reasons of I didn't really want to go to Lubbock, Ames, and Morgantown. But now that Arizona State, Utah have joined, I feel a lot better about Colorado making this move as the Pac-12 clearly.
Hey, listen, we could have a debate. What's a lousier town, Tucson or Lubbock, though? I mean, we can that is up for debate, Jake.
Yeah, I've been to both in the summer too, and it's tough
not
team.
Good.
Yeah. But yeah, so I feel a lot better about where Colorado is placed today than I did a week and a half ago. I find this to be really interesting as we find out more details because it does seem like Deion Sanders had a major impact on Colorado in making this move. I also find it interesting that a lot of people around CU are so hyped about this move when the same people who are making this move that lead Colorado's athletic department are the people that made the move to go to the Pac-12 in the first place.
I'll tell you this. Here's what the best thing is about for CU. I think inevitably there'll be 3 20-team conferences, okay? I think it'll be the Big 12, the SEC, and the Big 10. That's what I think it'll be. And I think that's 60 teams, Jake. And I don't know if we need more than 60 teams, battling it out for a national football championship. Maybe there will be some form of relegation within these conferences, but that's a gargantuan maybe. And I think that's just the way it's going to go. So you just got to be happy that your school, CU, is in one of those conferences, and they are. I think that's actually kind of the bottom line. I think the ACC and the Big East will all go away, as will the Pac-12. You'll have the SEC, the Big 10, which will be the Big 20. Well, there'll be 2 Big 20s, there'll be 3 Big 20s is what it'll really be. So I think that's eventually where it's going to go, with a 12-team playoff, and there you go. And then it's really a minor league pro football league because of all the NIL money. And we have the minor league we all really want, not the XFL, AFL, USFL, FFFL, or whatever the FL is. What it really is, Jake, is a 60-team professional football, because of NIL, league that we'll all, basically love.
Yeah, no, that's totally where this is going. And CU caught a lifeboat onto one of these conferences, and I definitely feel a lot better. Speaking of not catching a break and not feeling a lot better, the big news, in my opinion, in Denver sports this weekend, and maybe this got swept under the rug, is Vlatko Čančar, who was going to be a rotation player and possibly one of those 8 guys come playoff time for the Nuggets, tore his ACL over the weekend, playing for his home country of Slovenia in an exhibition game against Greece, where Luka Doncic also got hurt in that game, not as seriously, or else that would be all over the news. And ACL, so he's done for the year. He was going to be the backup power forward, maybe the backup small forward at times too. And this is a position that the Nuggets are pretty weak at because they let Jeff Green go. Zeke Naji was also going to have to step into a bigger role. DeAndre Jordan now maybe factors in a little bit more. The good news here, DMAC, is your guy, Hunter Tyson, looked amazing in Summer League, and he just so happens to play the same position. But the Nuggets are a lot thinner right now than they were last year, and I think that's already starting to show face before we even get to training camp.
This is a ridiculous opportunity for Hunter Tyson. I mean, absurd. So we'll see. I do wonder what they'll do with Peyton Watson too, but he doesn't have quite the same outside shot. That's what Vlatko really had. I mean, Vlatko we shouldn't have been surprised because we knew Vlatko had great hops and could dunk and all that sort of stuff. We actually did know that, but we always seemed so shocked when it happened. We shouldn't have been. And his knee injury was just on a dunk. I mean, it was an in the lane dunk. I mean, that can happen in the Drew League. That can happen in exhibition games. That can happen at the local YMCA. I mean, I don't think it was anything extraordinary. I don't think it was anything special. I don't think he was trying extra harder. I don't think it happened because he was playing. It's just the fragile nature of just being an athlete. I mean, injuries can happen. But, Jake, all these guys hoop. I was watching highlights of Michael Porter Jr. in sweatpants wrecking shop in some sort of, I don't know what scrimmage that was.
He looked amazing in that league, by the way. He looked like his athleticism is back, and his back is healthy. By the way, he had Peyton Manning on his podcast this morning. I haven't listened to it yet, but Michael Porter Jr., Curious Mike.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, listen, these guys just hoop. That's what they do. So when accidents happen, it sucks. But there's nothing you can do to stop them from hooping. And I feel bad for Vlatko. He's a great guy and would have had a great opportunity to get some serious minutes this year. So it's a bummer. It's not a game breaker for the Nuggets. But, man, it was nice having Vlatko last year. Didn't really play in the playoffs, but he had some serious, valuable moments during the regular season. So he's a great dude. He kept the mood light. He was one of Jokic's best friends. I do wonder, where he'll rehab and be around. Will he do like Jamal did and like Michael did when they were recovering from injury? Will he be with the team like Colin Gillespie? I kind of hope so, because I think his presence is a benefit for the team.
Yeah, he's one of the best glue guys in the locker room. Really good presence for the team. you feel awful for him because the path really cleared for him to carve out a role this year. He had a chance last year and he got hurt, and it had just seemed like he had finally proven he was an NBA player. The point you were touching on, I'd rather these guys be playing internationally and organized than at some gym in Seattle that their court might be off or something. Like, I'm fine with these guys playing internationally. I'm actually happy to see it because they get good competition and they understand that they're not just messing around. And I took seriously what, everyone's 8th grade football coach said, you should only play this game at one speed. I think you get hurt when you're playing and you're kind of hot dogging around. And unfortunately, in this case, when you were trying very hard, in Vlatko's case, you got hurt. But that's just the nature of the beast of playing professional athletics. So I feel awful for this guy because I thought he was going to have a real chance to be a real player for the Nuggets. And I really liked some of the things he did last year. And again, it's going to show some lack of depth. And, I had a buddy go, well, at least the Nuggets now can put him on the injured list and go get another person. That's not how it works in basketball. They don't have another guy that they can go get. There's no injury exception in basketball. So it just goes to show you, DMAC, how lucky they were from a health perspective last year, because before the season started, we've already lost one of the guys that was going to be in the rotation.
Yeah, bummer, man. But hey, it's not slowing down this steam engine. So you don't have any problems about Jamal playing for Team Canada then?
No, I'm actually happy about it. I think it's going to be great competition for him. I think sharing the court with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Dort, he's going to learn some things. It means something to him to play for that country, which will, keep his spirits up, keep him involved, keep him locked in. I'm all for these guys playing for their home countries. I was actually a little disappointed Jokic isn't playing for Serbia. I understood it because he's been playing a lot of basketball the last few years. But I personally wanted to see it, especially because they're trying to qualify for the Olympics, and I'm going to be at the Olympics. So I'm like, I really want Serbia to be at the Olympics.
Well, that's pretty selfish of you, Jake.
Oh,
so
yeah, it's very
selfish. That.
Yeah. But you asked if I wanted to see it. So, yeah.
I got it. I got you. All right. Well, there you go with the hoops, I suppose.
So let's transition over to training camp, DMAC. You've been out there. You were out there Friday, Saturday. First, let's start out with who's hot and who's not. DMAC, who's hot at training camp right now?
Who's hot at training camp? I'll say Jerry Jeudy's hot at training camp right now. He's playing well. He made a big catch to end practice on Saturday. Big throw from Russ. That was a fun situation. We can go into details on that a little bit later or now if you want, either or. But Judy's got the potential to have the best year of anybody on this team. The debate about who the better player is overall, Surtain or Jeudy, it's going to be mitigated by the fact that teams just aren't going to throw at Patrick Surtain a lot, whereas Jeudy could be used on any drive, anytime. They've been working on getting the ball into Judy's hands, not just throwing him the ball, but also running the ball on sweeps and other things like that. That's worked actually pretty well. And whether it's, over the middle or short or on the outside or deep, Jeudy can cover everything. So I'll go with Jeudy for being pretty hot. For not, tricky. Who's not? Well, the offensive line still is having its struggles, Jake. And I guess I can go into what happened on Saturday. So Friday and Saturday, they both did 2-minute drills. On the first drill, 2-minute period on Friday, it was to get 3 points. And the offense went backwards because of penalties and more or less gave the ball up. On Saturday, they had to get themselves not a touchdown, but a field goal, and they couldn't move the ball. Again, penalties. 2 penalties in a row. So on Friday and Saturday, on the first series of a 2-minute drive, the first 2 plays, back-to-back days, were penalties on the offense for false starts and mischievous behavior. And from there, you couldn't dig out. So both series to start were terrible. And on the second series on both days, one day the Broncos drove to where they could attempt a 52-yard field goal, and Maher hit it. And then on Saturday, they needed a touchdown. And it really came down with 12 seconds left to go. You didn't have much of a choice. It was like 3rd and something. And it was a 47-yard bomb from Russell Wilson to Jerry Jeudy, who I believe had Damari Mathis on him, and it was a perfect throw, back corner of the end zone, great catch. I mean, Broncos win, and we were doing some faux play-by-play. It's like, hey, they're 2-5 right now, and they're playing the Chiefs. They already lost to them on Thursday, and they've lost 16 in a row, and here we go, and it's a home game, and Broncos win. Broncos beat the Chiefs. And if that was the case, and the Broncos are 3-5, and you had a dramatic ending to the game, and Russell Wilson connected with Jerry Jeudy going in the bye week, there'd be some significant excitement for a 3-5 team. This is all just, make believe here, Jake. They weren't really doing this entire scenario. We were just concocting it in our heads. But the time on the clock was real. It was 12 seconds, 47 yards. Russell Wilson throws it deep, and Jerry Jeudy makes the catch. And, we'll take it, man. It was a good moment. It was a moment that everybody could feel good about. It was a throw, Jake, I'll just tell you, that any NFL quarterback can make. I mean, every quarterback in the NFL, second string, third string, they can all throw a ball 50 or 60 yards straight down the field. But you know what? At least it did happen. Russ made the throw. The protection was good on the play. The defense was trying. They weren't giving it to him. And it was the best play of training camp. And that's where we left off on Saturday afternoon for the Broncos. They were in halves. They weren't in full pads. It was tops and no pads in the pants. And there you go. So, there was, but when Sean Payton was asked about it, Jake, how did you feel about, that play? It was like, well, I'd feel better if we didn't stink the first series. And that's the way it's kind of been. So you take the good and the bad. And that's what it's been on really important sessions, the most important periods of practice so far on back-to-back days. It was terrible. I mean, terrible. And then it was positive. So what do you take from that, Jake?
So your imaginary scenario was very much like the Broncos. They went into the bye day feeling good about themselves despite some mistakes and some rough times, 3-5. And they ended on a high note. So that's probably an apt comparison to where they are at right now in training camp. I'm hearing some buzz that Courtland Sutton looks good as well. Yeah. So right now you've got Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton looking good according to what we are hearing and what we're seeing. So I'll just ask you, where's Russ right now on the Russ-o-meter now that you're feeling good about him hitting that long pass to Jerry Jeudy going into the bye day?
Russ is probably on the Russ-o-meter. If 10 is the, wow, he probably went into the weekend at about a 6.5. He still had a batted ball down. I'll give him a 6.5. I'll give him is that a great? That's a
little too good. That's a little too
great. Good.
I don't know. I think we only have great or not great on the graphics.
we probably need some in between room on that one. So he was fine. Listen, man, you don't need a 50 million quarterback to do what they're about to do in terms of running their offense. You just don't. But you got Russ. And, the one thing I'll say positive about Russ is that he doesn't lack for confidence. I don't think he's lacking confidence. In those type of situations when you're down and you have to come back, you don't want somebody in there that's doubting themselves. And I don't think he doubts himself. I think he thinks he's fine. He's staying in that neutral land, right? We're trying to stay neutral with everything. So, okay, cool. It's fine. The big decision, here's what people don't quite get. And I've heard people say, oh, calm down with the Russ hate and all this sort of stuff. Jake, people do not understand the contract situation with Russell Wilson. And they really need to look more into that. Because if you're going to get away from Russ, if you're going to get out, it would be next year. After that, the cap hit is it's wicked. I mean, it really is severe. You can't do anything. So this whole, it's going to take a couple years. It's all right, but you've got to make a decision at the end of next year. And I heard one of the most ridiculous things in the world. They compared what it will take with the Broncos to the Nuggets. Nikola Jokic is 28 years old. I mean, Russ is going to turn 35 in November. When Jokic turns 35, he's probably going to have, hopefully, right, 3 or 4 rings, and he'll be done. Jake, at 35, Jokic will be in the stable so much. He's not going to be playing basketball after age 35.
No. Well, and this leads me to something I've been thinking about, DMAC, is at least in the short term, because I'm totally with you in the long term. I think that the Broncos probably are going to need to move off Russ after this season, almost no matter what happens, unless he is phenomenal, because of the contract stipulates that he needs to be phenomenal based off how much he's paid. And right now, based off what we're seeing, he's been to good, which is serviceable, but he can't pay that much money to a serviceable quarterback. You need them to be great.
Right. And let's keep this in mind too. First of all, the contract is somewhat crippling. So if he's not great, what exactly do you think is going to happen as he gets older? Do you think he's about to get better? So no, you don't have like you don't have the same runway as the Nuggets had. I mean, it's not even close. You actually do have to be great right now to figure out if you want to move forward with this contract. That's why it's so crippling to restart over and over, because yeah, it does take time to be great. It does take time to develop. I feel like I'm spinning in the wind here, Jake, when I talk about the benefits of a younger drafted quarterback and the advantages that you get with it. And this is it. You get time. You get time to develop. You get time to move forward. You don't have that time now. So when I hear guys like my guy Mark Schlereth and others talk about, oh, well, just give it time, give it time, give it time. It's like, you don't got time. It's got to be good right away, right now. I wish we did have time, Jake, but it's 7 years missing the playoffs, 6 straight years of under a 500 record. What may go down is the biggest bust trade in the history of the NFL if it doesn't work out, and you've got 1 year to figure it out. That's it. And then if you do commit to that time in that year, you got to hope, Jake, this is wild, that Russell Wilson theoretically will get better as he gets older, not lesser. And they're about to run an offense, Jake, that almost any quarterback could run, because they're going to stay away from the middle of the field and pocket stuff. They're going to move them. They're going to rely on the running game and just make sure all the passes are kind of safe to the outside, aside from the deep bomb every now and then. It's going to be a very conservative type of offense. And it's like, well, why do we need to pay a guy $50 million to do this? And the truth is, you don't. So that's the situation, y'all. So how's Russ doing? I mean, it's like he's like a $7 million a year quarterback who's being paid $50 million a year. That's how he's doing.
Yeah, you got Russ because you thought you had the team around him and you were going to plug and play the quarterback and you were going to be a Super Bowl contender right away, because that was the thought here in Denver, that you were just missing a quarterback the last couple of years, that the defense was so good, blah, blah, blah. We all know the story, the receiver room, and the situation I find myself in thinking right now is the Broncos are still sniffing around for offensive help, DMAC. They've been in on Josh Jacobs. They've been in on Dalvin Cook. They obviously should be looking at wide receivers right now with Tim Patrick hurt. What does this offense need to actually be serviceable this year? Long term, we've talked about it. There are some significant issues, but can they do something in the near term to just bolster this offense and maybe add a win here or there?
I don't know. The running back situation looks pretty good to me. I look at Samaje Perine and Javonte Williams has actually been pretty amazing, Jake. And everybody loves, for rightfully so, Jaleel McLaughlin, one of the 238s. There's actually 238s out there. So, I mean, if you want to add a running back like Josh Jacobs, all right, fine. But I just think you can add those type of guys at any point during the season, too. I don't think it's that crazy. Sean Payton has alluded several times that there's other players out there, and he mentioned 37 players will be cut by 32 teams. Quick, what's the math? I know the answer. Do you know? 37 times 32? Just take a guess. Don't look it up. Don't do it on a calculator.
Hold on. It's going to be about what? I'm doing the math. It's going to be about what? 600 players?
1,184.
Yeah.
So there's going to be, that wasn't even close. There's going to be
good about that.
There's going to be a crazy amount of talent that's out there too. And Payton has referred, listen, you got to be smart and read between certain lines. Sean Payton's going to look for talent from other teams. So I will inherently agree with you that they may be looking for those positions. I just don't think they're going to be looking free agent wise for big money sort of guys. I think they're going to be patient.
So you think it's more likely that the Broncos, instead of going out and signing Dalvin Cook tomorrow, are the team that goes out and makes that trade for like Malik Reed, saying it's a running back or wide receiver, but like the type of trade where you trade a 5th or 6th or 7th round pick for a guy who's about to get cut by a team in 2 weeks?
Maybe something like that. I think they're going to be active in those departments. And I'm not saying they won't try to get Josh Jacobs or Dalvin Cook or somebody else, but I think they're going to see how the market shakes out, and they're going to wait until all these cuts happen. So I would be very surprised if they moved on one of those guys before the cut down date. After the cut down date, I mean, everything's fair game. You kind of never know. So we'll see. I think they will look to improve. I do think they'll be, listen, I think Albert O's got to do something here the next few days, and he better have a good preseason game. He made a couple of nice plays on Saturday. It's the first time I've even seen him make any plays. So I was like, okay, good for you, Alberto, because he's been a ghost. Mims has been a ghost as a receiver. He's looked okay as a returner. But Montreal Washington, Jake, has like kind of risen from the ashes to have some really cool moments. So again, when you talk about, well, are they going to go get somebody? They may be able to add guys like a Montreal Washington that are like, well, okay, I guess he can play. So we'll see. Not sure exactly what they'll do, but they're going to do something. They will not be standing pat. I guarantee you that. They will be doing something. They will be active when the opportunity comes.
Wild enough, this just kind of hit me, and I knew it. But the Broncos have a game this week. They do have a preseason game on Friday. It feels kind of crazy to think about. And it makes sense because this morning, and I know you rode your bike into work, it was a little bit cooler. It felt like a fall day for the first time. So here we are. And I guess we're going to hear you, D-Mac, after practice with a little coffee break post-game report, I think with either Will or James Marilat. I'm not sure who's there today, but we look forward to that. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow on Coffee Break. And that's all we've got today. I'm Jake Shapiro. He's D-Mac. Thanks for tuning in.